Six Sigma Greenbelt, Unit 2. The first thing I'd like to talk about is called a FMEA, Failure Mode and Effects Analysis. This has been around for since Apollo. They actually came up with this because they want to know what could possibly happen, and it worked out pretty good actually. If you think about in Apollo 11, as they were going towards the moon, they had a failure code. I can't remember what it was, failure code 1207, and of course the astronauts were nervous. But within a few minutes, they knew exactly what to do about it, which was ignore it. Other things such as the O-rings blowing up or failing on Challenger, things like that. So what is a failure mode? It's a way or modes in which something might fail, right? This is how it could not work. Effects analysis. What's going to happen? What are the consequences of that? So if the O-ring fails, like on a Challenger, well, the effect would be the disaster that blew up. And then what you do is you can't fix them all, so you got to prioritize them, right? And you want to go with the ones that are most serious. Those are the ones that had the biggest consequences. And you also, if they happen quite a bit and you can't detect them, three things have to happen for a disaster to happen. One, it had to fail. Two, the effects had to be quite serious. And three, you had no way of knowing it was going to come. That's FMEA. I've got a whole handout. I'll share as a PDF on FMEA when I teach FMEAs. As you remember, the steps in Six Sigma: define, measure, analyze, improve, then control. First one is define, right? So how do we define it? Well, you have to have the scope and boundary. And this might be you don't want to do something that's so vast. You don't want to boil the ocean, as they say. Make it something that's scalable, something that's doable, but you don't want it so light that it has no impact, right? So the next thing you have to do is define the defects. What exactly is wrong? What are we going to try to fix? And then you got to, a lot of people make a contract or a team charter, and I'll share a handout with this, or actually it's a PowerPoint. But basically you tell, well, what's the team, what's their scope, what their deliverable is, and who's on the team, and just all the information you need to do a project. You also want a champion. This is somebody that's connected to the management and has ability to get resources for the team. What is the impact on the project, right? I remember I had a great project. I mean, it was laid out well, and it was on actually using soap in the bathroom. And when it was all said and done, they saved about $120 a year. They spent more than that just on the project, right? And if you don't have leadership approval, it's just not going to happen. Just not going to happen. Some of the activities, you got to validate and identify opportunities. Don't fix something that's not broken. So make sure it's broken before you fix it, and identify them, right? And there's different tools: brainstorming, customer complaints, things like that. We'll talk a little bit about stakeholders later, but you got to identify the stakeholders. Everybody's going to be impacted by the project. Team, we'll talk a bit about teams quite a bit. The team charter again. You want to map the process. You can do a value stream map, or you can do a process map. But basically, you got to find out what you're dealing with, right? And the fix is not to the product, it's to the process, right? And you're going to grab some low-hanging fruit. This is stuff that you can fix like right away. It's a no-brainer kind of thing. You just see it out there and you do it. And you set the guidelines and rules. And what are your results going to be, right? So how are you going to measure success? Six Sigma projects, it's never done in isolation. It's always done with teams. And I won't spend much time on this because I'm going to hand out. I'll probably do another video, and I'll give a handout on teaming. But teams go through a phase, right? Forming, storming, norming, performing. The 4 stages: forming, storming, norming, performing. And I'll get more information in the handout. But basically, what is in it for the company? Why does the company want teams? What does the company get? Well, the biggest thing they get is a diversity and plethora of ideas. More than just one perspective, right? So that being said, the Army actually did a study that the best size for teams are about 5 to about 9, which is basically we're hardwired to work in those groups. That's the size of families, so we're hardwired into it. And then you go to the next size up, it's about I don't know, up to about 40. That's about as many people as you can know. You know, you're not going to know them intimately like a family. So you don't want to get too big, but you don't want to be too small and get groupthink. So everybody in the team, they also learn, members of the team, it's in it for them too. They learn to work with people. Plus they get to see different perspectives also, right? Team resources. We've all been on teams where we just didn't have what we needed the expert to do it. It was the expertise, other resources, and objectives. What is the team's goal, right? A lot of teams will flop because they don't know where they're going, right? So metrics, we come into metrics, but what do you want out of the team, right? What is the purpose of the team? And empowerment. This is hard for a lot of management to give up power, but a team that's not empowered, they're not really a team. They're just people working for you. You want people that feel empowerment, and I'll talk more about that in other classes. And management support. If you don't have management support, you're screwed. Just that simple. Then there's the natural work team organization. Again, people try to tend to be into groups. They like about 2 or 3, maybe 4 sometimes. And that's the natural way we work. We get that best buds and we start working together. But the best teams, again, are between 5 and 9. So remember that if you're ever in charge of a group of people, form your teams no more than 9, close to 5 as possible, because that's where they're going to do it anyway. And they're going to try to even divide it even smaller. Just go to the lunchroom and watch how people sit together. Natural work teams are people that just naturally come together and work, common goal, common interest, common everything, right? Two types of customers. External customer. These are people that generally they pay money, right, or receive goods, service, something like that, but they're not actually part of the organization. They're external to that organization, as opposed to the internal customer. And these are people that, like the machine shop, its customer is the assembly. Assembly's customer is the testing, right? They both have the external customer, the one's going to buy the product. Internal customers are receiving another department's output, and that's why process maps are important. This will help you to identify internal customers. So what is a process? You got to know what a process is before you can manage one, right? Duran said it's a logical organization of people, materials, energy, equipment, and information into work activities designed to produce a required end result, either a product or a service. Again, this is where you come up with your process map, value stream map. You got to know how this thing flows, right? And he said there are three things you got to measure. One, right? One's effectiveness. Is the output meeting the customer needs? How well is it doing that? Are you doing it at the lowest cost? Not just money, but also resources, people, whatever. And adaptability. Are you able to change? This happens all the time. Technology. We had a pandemic, and you got to be able to change. Otherwise you're going to fail, right? Well, this is the old SIPOC model. So you got a supplier. This is whoever provides the resources that you need in the process. Your input, information, material, service provided. These are like stuff the engineers would provide, or the market, or maintenance, things like that. The process. This is how you change all those inputs into the outputs. And you're going to add customer value. And I'll do another video on customer value as part of Lean. Output, what are you finally getting out of there for your product or your service? And the customer, the person in the process that receives that output. So it's that simple, right? You'd be surprised how many organizations, though, don't realize, can't fill this model out, right? Very important to understand this and have some detail in it. There are different groups of stakeholders. The internal stakeholders are the ones that are directly involved in the company or organization. These are the employees, the managers, of course, the owners, definitely. But then you also have the external. There's some obvious ones like suppliers and customers. But basically, this is everybody, right? With the global markets and things, everybody's got a stake in every company somehow, some way. These are suppliers, your society, governments, your creditors for sure. If you're publicly traded, the shareholders, and your customers, obviously. Lean and Six Sigma, it's all about satisfying the customer, because ultimately the customers, the external customers, are the ones that are going to give us money and keep us in business and let us feed our families. And you want to take care of them, right? And they're the most important. But the best way to do that is to also take care of your internal customers, right? Your staff members, service providers, management. They're what they do. Their customers are everybody that works for them underneath them, and employee satisfaction impacts, right, on customer service. Happy employees make good product, right? Good product, and communication. Number one problem in any organization is communication. The better you can communicate, the happier your internal customers are, surprisingly, right? Transparent management is, how you doing financially and things. Do better, studies have found, and I can't quote the exact study, are much better than those that keep a secret and don't share things with their customers or with their employees and other people. I'm just going to give an example of how external customers work. I was going to make some bulgogi for some friends. So I need some Korean red paste. Well, I'm the end user. I'm ultimately going to be the one using the red paste. So I go to the Korean store and I purchase the red paste. The Korean store is actually an intermediate user. They bought that red paste to resell it to me, right? Impacted parties will be the people that come to eat the bulgogi, right? They didn't purchase it, but they're impacted by the flavor, smell, whether it makes them sick or not. Um, and this is the way it generally works. Sometimes you can cut out the intermediate user, but generally there are three levels of the external customers: end user, intermediate, and impacted parties. So we want to collect customer data, and there are different levels of customer data, right? Business level, these are basically going to be financial revenues, gross sales, return on investment, RONA, those types of things. Owners, shareholders, these are things they're concerned with. Operations level, this is could be both internal and external. Again, this is your effectiveness, how well do you meet their needs, efficiency, how cheap is it, and quality, things like that. And then on process level, this is where you actually primarily focus on internal customers. And what you want to do is say, how well are we meeting your needs? You the people that are working for us, our employees, how well are we meeting those? You'd be surprised how many people really don't know their employees. If you have a high turnover in your organization, you might want to think about why and start looking at this process level. So how do you gather the data? Surveys, we've all taken surveys. We go, on a scale of 1 to 10 or whatever. Look at Likert scales if you get a chance. Focus groups, we just sit in about 3 to 9 people and just talk about it, right? What do you think of this? And see what they have to say. Face-to-face interviews, if you have an outside sales force, in addition to just making sales, you need to have a two-way street. What is the customer telling you? And extract that data from them. Satisfaction and complaint cards. This is, well, if you look at when you buy something online, how many stars are you going to give this supplier? You could have one at the emergency room. I see a lot of them there now. Hospital stays, they do that. And these are, if you send them out by mail, good luck with that. It doesn't work so well. Or even email. It's hard. Look at the ratings, right? Look at the ratings. Dissatisfaction sources. Oh man, this is huge, right? Again, you got the stars. A good one I always like is look at social media. If you do a search on, let's pick one, family, Walmart. Do a search on Walmart and just see what people have to say about Walmart. Or do a search for Walmart complaints. See what they have to say. And competitive shopping, they actually have mystery shoppers. I was a mystery shopper, I used to get like free hotel stays and things like that. Once a month I'd go to Papa John's, and Papa John's give me $20 to buy a pizza and tell them how that pizza tasted and all that, how evenly the peppers were spread out on it, things like that. All those things adds up to what's the voice of the customer. What is the customer telling you, right? And you want to know the voice of the customer. This is very important. If you don't know that voice, you're not going to be able to satisfy that customer. So you collect all this data, right? So what do you do with it? Well, you got to analyze it. And there, I'll have detail. I'll go into detail in other documents or other videos on all of these. Statistical tests, you're going to get tired of doing these by the time we're done with the whole course. Line graphs, another type of chart. Control charts, I'll probably do a video on that. Matrix diagrams, Pareto analysis is a big one. Again, I'm not going to go into detail. If you want to, pause the slide right here and do some research on the internet. But I'll cover these in depth later on. So you've done your analysis, right? So now you got to say, okay, what do we have to do to satisfy our customers, right? So you got to determine, first of all, what's critical to the customer. What must we provide as a bare minimum to make that customer even look at our product, right? These are our critical customer requirements. If we don't do this, we're not going to sell it, whether it's a product or service. Then we start looking at the customer expectations. We can do the very basic, these are the bare essentials. What do you need? I'm going to use a car for an example. Well, a car should be, when I buy it, should be assembled, ready to drive, air in the tires, things like that. Very, very, very basic. Expected, some things I need to know with the car. What happens? What's the warranty? What what's in this car that I want? Does it have a radio? Things like that. Then there's the desired, right? Um, they're worthwhile to have, but I'm not probably going to pay too much for these. Um, I've bought a new car and it came with a CD player, which surprised me. I wasn't going to pay more for it, but hey, that's cool because I got all these old CDs I can listen to now. And then there's unanticipated. Another thing that I didn't expect to have 6 months worth of roadside assistance or to have free oil changes for the next 3-5 years, whatever it is, right? That's unanticipated. A lot of people call these delighters, right? And keep in mind that customer needs. I'm just going to use the Duran example of a car. What the customer say? They want, I need a car. Real needs. So the customer just needs transportation, right? Perceived needs. I think I need a new car, right? A used car just won't do, right? Cultural. Oh man, it has to be a Mercedes-Benz. And unintended, right? He used it some way I didn't expect it. Well, he's going to haul bricks with it, right? Strange, right? And that happens quite a bit. But the customer has all these needs, right? And you can't give it all to them, right? So you got to put priorities to it. And we'll talk a little bit about how you do that. But you got to decide, prioritize what you're going to deliver to the customer. It has to be done because you're not going to be able to give him everything he wants, generally. This is called the quality force function deployment, QFD. So how does this thing work? Well, you come in with what? So this is the voice of the customer that goes on the left. So all the things in the blue are things you have control over. Importance, you kind of rank which one is the most important, set the priority. Then you set the design features. And then you take those and say how well you're doing all these design features and how they correlate to your customer needs, right? And then you put all these measurables and you translate them to this correlation. And basically, I'm not going to spend much time on this, but look one up and you can see that this thing correlates to all these things on how they all relate to each other, right? And you see how well you're doing. And then you want to take into look at competition, right? Some benchmarks and targets. Again, I've done a couple of these. He's been around since the 1970s. It's developed in Japan. The problem I have is a lot of times you don't have the data, so people just put in whatever they think. It's kind of like fiction. This is hard to get the data to do one of these correctly, but it's worthwhile if you can get that data. Team dynamics. This is huge, and whenever you add a new team, you might want to think of going through this, actually teaching your team the dynamics, because it'll get you through it faster. Again, the best size for a team, about 5 to 9 generally. Size of a family, because that's what we're hardwired to deal with. You want diversity. The more diverse, the better, whether it's cultural, racial, education-wise, from the different departments. The more you can change, and studies have shown, the more diverse you are, the better the end product, right? And again, the 4 stages: forming, you get together; storming, you fight it out; norming, you start getting used to where you belong; and performing is the last one, right? Think of these reality shows, Survivor, right? When they first form, everybody's excited, yeah, all happy, and then the arguments start, and they finally settle into their place on the team. And they finally start performing then, right? And that's the life cycle of this thing. Ultimately, teams should just be able to on-form, deform, or whatever you want to call it. You ever seen those teams that just linger longer than they should be? And recognition and reward, right? People like being praised. They like attaboys, attagirls, right? I'm going to share a video with Dan Pink. He talks about what motivates people. And I can't do it any better than he does talk about it. So these are some roles that you'll have on a project team. You got the black belts. They're pretty good at problem solving, and they can do their math pretty well. Master black belts, they mentor and they monitor the projects, make sure everything's going okay. They're experts. They might not actually be on the team, but they're available if you have a question. Green belts are usually just part-time Six Sigma people, but you'll find out after about the 12th lesson, you will be skilled and you will be able to analyze, right? You're a big part of this team. Sponsors, these are the people that cheer, lead you on, and tell you where you're going to go. Management is another word for this one, right? Champions, these people provide air cover, basically, right? They make sure you have the resources and everything you need to make this team successful. Usually part of management. And then the process owners. If you're going to change somebody's process, you got to make the owner aware of it. If he or she's not on board, you're not going to succeed. Just not going to succeed. So there are some different team tools we can actually use. And I won't get into much detail on these. But here's a list. Nominal group technique. What happens, this is kind of like a brainstorming. Everybody says, okay, here's the problem. What's your solution? And people will take a piece of paper and without telling anybody, they'll write down their possible solutions. And then they pick out the best one. And then everybody comes together and they talk about it. And they basically hammer out the solution that they think is best. Multi-voting, you got several different solutions. So you don't have to pick just one. You pick out your favorite three, right? So if there's like 9 different choices, you pick out the 3 you like the best. And basically, those 3 go it's the same vote, so you're not locked into just one vote. They're actually talking about doing this. Some of the parties are talking about doing this in the primaries. You can vote for more than one candidate. So if your candidate doesn't win, well, I'm okay with this other guy too, or this other woman too, right? Brainstorming, we all know what that is. You just sit there and you just throw out ideas. No thought to quality, just to keep on throwing them out. So some different team problems. Groupthink is people just think the same, right? We all know that married couple where they just think the same. The wife will finish the sentence or the husband will finish the sentence, right? They just think exactly the same. Risky shift's an interesting one. They found that people in groups will tend to make they'll risk things, right? They'll take extreme action that they wouldn't take normally because they feel comfortable with the people in the group, right? And then the additional problem areas, these are the people skills, the soft skills, people that don't like each other. And I'm tempted to get into politics here and talk about that, but I won't. But some teams just they can't work together, right? Just can never work together. And these are the soft skills. Communication, number one problem in all organizations, right? You got to have some method of doing the flow of communication downward and also upward, right? Management needs to talk to the employees. Employees need to talk to management, right? That's for both ways, and there's different ways of doing that. I won't get into it here, but you got to have this. Misleading information. Oh my, the rumor mills. Every organization has a rumor mill, right? And well, heck, let's tack on to it. Social media, just laced full of misleading information and lies, right? Horizontal communication. You may know something in your department, but the same buddy with the same basically position as you in another department, you just don't talk to them, right? There's formal communication. These are like the newsletters, emails, that type of thing, but also informal communication. The conversations they have in the lunchroom, talks during the break. What one wife said to another wife, well, you come home from work, you tell your wife, and she tells the wife of a co-worker, right? Very informal. Gatekeepers, these are people that hoard information, knowing that information is power. And so they keep information and just leak it out just a little bit at a time, just enough to do it. Other communication techniques, there's a ton of them out there now, ton of them. These are signs, lights on the factory, how are we doing? We keep tally of how many units we produce. Toyota uses red, green, and yellow lights on their machines to let them know how they're doing it. Questioning technique. Back when I was in the Army, when you gave an order, you used to say, well, go to the the lowest ranking guy and ask him to repeat back your order, you question him. What are you thinking? Do you understand this, right? Communication has to be a two-way street, not just one way. And listening strategies, how do you listen? And there's a bunch of them, right? I'll probably do a video on this, but there's a ton of listening strategies. Listening is the most important part of communication, not talking. Listening is the part you want to focus on.